Obscenity laws, analysis of case studies. Summary of cases. Miller was found guilty of violating a California law that makes it illegal to transmit obscene materials by the government of California. He conducted a massive mailing campaign to advertise the sale of material that contained naked pictures. He filed an appeal with the Superior Court's Appellate Division. He argued for a work to be labeled obscene, it must be completely devoid of any redeeming social value, complaining the jury instructions ignored it. The Supreme Court reiterated, as it did in the Roth case, that the First Amendment does not protect obscene material. Finally, it was proposed that modern decency standards should be used to determine what constitutes obscenity. The court ruled that the First Amendment did not apply because the controlled substance was subject to California state law. In the Roth versus California case, Samuel Roth, a publisher based in New York, sold explicit periodicals. A California businessman named David Alberts distributed magazines featuring scantily clad women. Roth and Phillips were found to have violated federal and state obscenity laws and filed for appeals with the Supreme Court of California. The court ruled that obscene writing was not journalism or free expression, hence, the First Amendment did not protect them. Definition of obscenity. In Roth versus the United States, the Supreme Court stated unequivocally that the First Amendment does not protect meaningless writing and speech. According to the law, obscenity was determined by whether the material as a whole appealed to the prurient curiosity, considering the accepted standards of the time. According to the court, due process was not violated because the concept of obscenity provided adequate, fair notice. In Miller versus California, Justice Brennan reversed his position, ruling that obscene materials were not protected by the First Amendment in Roth's case against the U.S. The work is checked to determine whether it depicts or portrays sexual behavior expressly prohibited by state law and whether such behavior is manifestly unpleasant. For the first time since the Roth case, the Supreme Court had a majority opinion on what constitutes obscenity with Miller. Following Miller, the Supreme Court spent years reviewing various convictions in obscenity cases before deciding not to monitor state processes in such situations. Why Roth and Miller were not protected by the First Amendment. Miller's case ruling at the Supreme Court was based on requiring everyone to conform to the same national norm and considering the act as a whole. Even if a minor portion of a work is deemed offensive, the rest of the work will be protected under the First Amendment. Based on this law, the Supreme Court upheld Roth's conviction for transmitting obscene materials. This defined the line between unrestricted free expression and unacceptable obscenity. In Roth's case, the court applied a more stringent definition of obscenity than had previously been used under common law precedent. The court argued that current norms of acceptable behavior best predict whether a work's central theme will be perceived as obscene by the average person. Additionally, it held that a piece of writing must serve no redeeming social purpose to be considered obscene. The defendant's actions did not have to be either protected by the First Amendment or found to be illegal under this standard. In both cases, the appeals failed, and the court appealed the initial ruling of the high courts. Importance of the understanding of obscenity laws. Obscenity legislation's primary goal is to limit the range of possible verbal, visual, and literary expressions. To prevent the degradation of morality and the spread of offensive materials, the American legal system enacted several obscenity laws. Because different people have different definitions of obscene, the obscenity laws in the U.S. are sometimes the source of heated debate. Professional speakers concerned about the legality of their work should read and understand the obscenity law. Because of the possibility of ambiguity, they risk being held liable for any consequences that result from their failure to comply.